Look, the most expensive day of your entire year already happened. It was February 28th. But here's the totally wild part. You're not actually going to pay for it until October. Most of us are completely blind to this massive economic wave heading right for our wallets. So in today's explainer, we're not just talking about inflation. That's surface level stuff. We're breaking down a psychological trap. We're going to dive deep into how global events literally trick your brain into making the absolute worst financial decisions at the absolute worst possible times.
Have you logged into your bank account lately and just felt this weird, creeping sense of paranoia? You're doing the mental math, you're thinking the balance is just lower than it should be. You haven't made any big purchases, no sudden emergencies, just this sinking, awful feeling that your money is somehow evaporating. Well, I want to validate that right now. You are not paranoid. Your money really is moving faster. And it's happening because the global supply chain is quietly exploiting our deeply wired human instinct to just wait and see. You see, we are operating on an invisible timeline. The global economy doesn't react instantly. It moves in delayed shockwaves. Let's trace it. On February 28th, a military strike hit the Middle East. Within days, the Strait of Hormuz was effectively closed. Now that bottleneck carries 20% of the world's oil. That was the trigger. Weeks later, that shock hits global shipping. But it takes months, literally all the way into October, before that specific disruption hits your local produce aisle. By the time it actually lands in your cart, almost everyone will have completely forgotten what caused it.
To really make this click, let's look at two totally realistic situations. Meet Maya. She's a kindergarten teacher making $58,000 a year. Then you have Ryan and Jess. They work in logistics and healthcare, bringing in a combined $94,000. They live in the exact same city. They shop at the exact same stores. But in a few months, Ryan and Jess are going to be financially crushed, while Maya will be completely fine. Why? Because Maya understood the timeline and adjusted early. Ryan and Jess, despite their higher income, are doing what almost everyone does. They are waiting it out. And right now, waiting is the most expensive thing you can possibly do.
47%. That is exactly how much diesel fuel jumped almost overnight when this whole conflict kicked off. Now, you might be thinking, well, I drive a tiny commuter car, I don't buy diesel, so why do I care? You care because diesel is the literal lifeblood of the physical supply chain. It powers the 18-wheelers, the refrigerated trucks, the tractors on the farms. Every single penny that diesel goes up acts as a direct, hidden tax on literally everything you buy.
Here is exactly how this builds, step by step. Step 1. Diesel costs spike globally. Step 2. Freight carriers absolutely do not absorb that loss. Instead, they pass 60 to 80% of those increases straight through to retailers using fuel surcharges. Step 3. Your grocery bills surge. The transmission mechanism here is ruthless. It takes exactly 30 to 60 days for an overseas geopolitical disruption to find its way directly into your wallet. It operates with terrifying mathematical certainty.
Which brings us right back to our two households. Maya anticipated this wave. She didn't freak out, she just made tiny, proactive lifestyle shifts. She started batch cooking on Sundays, she canceled a $72 monthly meal kit, really small, easy stuff. Meanwhile, Ryan and Jess are going to stand at the grocery checkout line next month staring at a $55 surprise on their receipt. They'll be utterly confused, they'll feel like helpless victims of random inflation. But the brutal truth, they just didn't look up to see the wave coming.
But the gas pump and the grocery store, those are just the first two waves. Here is the terrifying third wave that almost nobody is putting together. Force majeure. It's a legal term for unforeseeable circumstances that prevent a company from fulfilling a contract. And recently, Gulf fertilizer producers quietly declared it. Why on earth does this matter to you? Because natural gas is the primary raw material for making fertilizer. And roughly a third of the world's fertilizer passes straight through that blocked Strait of Hormuz.
Think about it. Spring planting is happening right now. The incredibly tough decisions farmers are making this very month, all based on these massive fertilizer shortages, will directly determine the cost of your August cookout. It is a total mind shift once you realize this. The food shortages of autumn, they are already locked in right now, today. But nobody's putting out a press release to warn you that your summer produce is about to double in price. It is an invisible timer, and it's counting down.
And just when you think you've safely budgeted for food, the fourth wave hits. 60%. That is the massive sudden surge in the cost of jet fuel. Now, fuel happens to be the single largest operating expense for any airline. When their biggest cost jumps 60% in just 3 weeks, they realistically only have two choices: destroy their own balance sheets or pass the cost to you. And spoiler alert, airlines will always choose to pass the cost to you. Now, this is exactly where human psychology actively punishes us. Check out this incredibly realistic scenario. Maya called her mom and said, "Hey, book your summer flight right now." Her mom listened, booked it early, and paid $287. Ryan and Jess, well, they fell into the classic human trap of waiting to see how things play out. They dragged their feet. That exact same flight for them is now over $341, and it is climbing fast. Their natural instinct to wait and see is literally the most expensive mistake they could make. They are paying actual cash for their own hesitation.
So now we reach wave 5. And this is where the real systemic danger lies. The trap of 22% interest. Earlier this year, everyone and their brother expected the Federal Reserve to drop rates. People were banking on getting cheaper mortgages. They were desperate for relief on their crushing credit card debt. But the Fed is trapped. Fighting rising global oil prices means they absolutely cannot cut rates. They are acting like a doctor whose only medicine causes the exact side effect they are trying to cure. The hopes for cheap money are dead, and it's leaving millions of people trapped with skyrocketing borrowing costs.
Which brings us to the actual root cause of why so many people get absolutely crushed in times like these. I want you to really think about this quote. Your nervous system evolved for physical survival. It has not updated for index funds. We are walking around with ancient caveman brains trying to navigate incredibly modern financial systems. When the market drops, your brain dumps stress hormones. It screams at you to flee, to sell, to hide in cash. That instinct kept your ancestors alive in the wilderness. But in the stock market, it is exactly why the average investor underperforms the market for 15 straight years.
Let's break down the incredibly counterintuitive math of building wealth. If you stayed fully invested through the most terrifying market crashes over the last few decades, your return would be nearly 15,000%. But if you gave in to that biological panic and missed just the 10 best trading days, and by the way, those best days almost always happen right in the middle of severe, scary bear markets, your return collapses to just 91%. 91%. Wealth is not built in calm, sunny markets. It is built by the rare few who can resist their own panic during terrifying volatility.
Let's apply this real-world behavior directly to Maya and Ryan. Maya opens her investment app, sees an absolute sea of red, instantly closes the app and ignores it. She successfully overrides her brain's urge to flee. Ryan, on the other hand, opens his 401k statement, feels physically sick to his stomach, and panics. He desperately wants to sell and move to cash. If he does that, he permanently locks in a temporary loss. Financial survival isn't about having some secret insider formula. It's simply about overriding your deeply wired biological urge to run away.
So how do you actually change your financial posture before this next wave drowns you? You take these 5 incredibly unglamorous survival steps. First, shift your cash into a 4.2% high-yield savings account. Second, attack your 22% credit card debt immediately. Treat it like an absolute emergency. Third, whatever you do, do not pause your investment contributions. Buy the fear. Fourth, book your summer travel today, not next month. And fifth, audit your personal energy exposure. If you are commuting 40 miles a day in a gas guzzler, the math of your life just changed and you need to adapt.
Look, doing nothing is not a neutral choice right now. You are either earning a 4.2% guaranteed yield or you are paying a 22% compounding tax on your inaction. If you are just carrying a balance and kind of hoping the economy gets better, the environment is literally taxing you for waiting. You absolutely must proactively shift your mindset. You cannot afford to sit still.
We've covered a massive amount of ground in this explainer today, which leaves us with a highly provocative question. Will this understanding actually turn into action, or is it just going to become an informed complaint at dinner? You now see the invisible strings of the global supply chain. You know exactly why the prices are going up. And more importantly, you know the psychological traps your own brain is going to set for you. You can either step out of the victim mindset and outsmart the system, or you can be like everyone else, standing at the grocery checkout just complaining about prices.
If you want to be the person who adjusts early, rather than the person who reacts late, make sure you hit subscribe. We're going to keep diving deep into the hidden systems that are quietly running your life, so you can stay one step ahead of them. Thanks for spending some time with this explainer today, and I'll see you next time.